Mandee.
Katie.
I mean, look, I think we are both we're both showered.
Well would be stretching it, but
Okay,
better,
better.
better is fair.
And yeah. So, I mean, it's a banner day. I feel like we had a stretch there where we had some issues.
Listen, listen.
There's no plume to smell today, so
Good,
I
good.
feel like I'm winning.
Yeah, it's just another hurricane for other people.
Well, and again, I say Mandee is, and I haven't looked on Amazon. It's Amazon Prime Day. I have not looked on there to see if there's a safety guard, reflective gear banner for her to wear, sash over her shoulder. But if you're in the path of who I like to call Milton Berle, because we used to really name, give first and last names and associate them with characters, all the hurricanes. So this one's Milton Berle. If Milton Berle is smoking his cigar and coming at your house, I need you to check in with Mandee over the next couple days. Actually, this will not air till after he's gone. But I hope that you do anyway. I know Mandee will be up at 2 a.m. checking on you. So be safe, people. Always be safe with these hurricaneados.
Listen, they just announced a mandatory evacuation for St. Augustine. A mandatory
So
evacuation.
look, I know. So my in my old life, most of us lived in Macon. When we worked around the country, we just had Macon as our hub and flew out. But there were a few of us that lived other places. And one of the people that lives somewhere else is named Tim, and Tim lives in Tampa.
Damn
And he usually hunkers down. What Tim is the Sheldon Cooper of Geico.
it.
So he's super tall, super skinny. He is very particular about food, but unlike Sheldon Cooper, he loves animals. And we call him Snow White sometimes. He is not leaving his home because there is a mother squirrel that he feeds that just had babies, and he wants to stay and protect the mother squirrel. Mandee is rapidly blinking, which is what I did when I first heard that. And I knew it was Tim and that it was probably the truth. I did not think it was a joke. And so I double checked, and it is not a joke. He has said that out loud. He will not be leaving his home because of a mother squirrel that just had babies.
Oh, Tim.
He's also the one that in Vegas at a five-star restaurant asked the waiter to bring all the steak bones so he could put it in his luggage and bring it home to his neighbor's dog. That's Tim.
Oh, Tim.
So Tim may not make it. God help us. So anyway, if
I mean,
don't be a
seriously,
Tim.
did you see the
Don't
mayor?
be
I don't know
Tim.
if it was the mayor of Tampa or some mayor, it's female mayor, being interviewed by a reporter. And the reporter said something about what's your message for people who are in evacuation zones and are not evacuating? And she said, be prepared to die.
Yeah. I sent that message to my logical friend that works with him still. And I said, have you told him that he's going to die if he stays? She said, he doesn't care. He's worried about the squirrel. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Keep it with you, Tim.
The reality of this hurricane, though, for those in Florida trying to escape, who are actually trying to get out, is that they can't go to their normal places. Valdosta got wiped off the map, Statesboro, so they're having to come way far north. So Atlanta's normally a hot mess. Atlanta's even worse right now, which is saying a lot. So, these back-to-back hurricanes really do affect so many things in so many different ways. And it is my hope and
Today's
prayer
the
that you got out.
today's the 6 year anniversary of us getting the mandatory evacuation order for Michael. And we ended up the damage for Michael started about 20 miles east of where I am.
Yeah.
And that was just like roofs blown off and stuff. Like it wasn't horrible. I don't think that my power even went off during Michael, but even just the process of, waking up in Atlanta, having been to a Braves game the night before, planning on going to a Braves game that night, and then looking and going, oh crap, tornadoes come. I mean, hurricane's coming right for me. Deciding to drive home. The whole time I'm driving home, I'm just like getting stuff, getting my, prepared, thinking, am I going to stay? Am I going to ride it out? Am I going to leave? What's going to happen? And then about the time shortly after I got here, we get the mandatory evacuation order. So then I know I'm leaving, and then deciding I'm leaving as soon as I get done with all this. I'm not waiting until in the morning, because there ain't but one way out around here.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
you don't, last thing you want to do is get stuck in traffic. So, and then you leave and you don't know what's going on, and you have all the stress of all of that. And then the stress of coming back. And even though we didn't take a direct hit, our cell service was bad. We didn't have internet for, a week. So, multiply that times 1,000 for the people who, even the people who are just like our friends in St. Simon's, who were just without power, for 5-6 days. It's just exhausting. And I'm just flabbergasted by people who don't have any empathy or understanding of what is going on. Like, I've got a friend who plays tennis, like in one of the tennis leagues, and they have a tennis tournament in Mobile this weekend, and she lives in St. Simon's. It's not Birch, Birch is Casey. And Casey's like, these people are like telling us that we're going to have to pay a huge fine.
Oh, come on.
We're going to be banned from ever playing in another tournament ever again if we back out.
Stop.
It's like, like, this guy's in Mobile. I'm like, he ought to have some empathy.
He has been hit by a hurricane before.
Right?
What the heck?
It just makes me the lack of empathy in our world.
Yeah. Well, and especially, I don't want to get too political, but because we try not to on here, but because it's depressing. But especially about our politicians and the people that are supposed to be out there helping us. But
it just, really and truly, like, this is not a political statement. This is just really and truly.
Yeah.
If you are getting your news from a place that is purposely trying to fire you up and make you angry, then I would really encourage you to get your news from somewhere else, because that's just not healthy.
Somewhere else.
It is not healthy to sit around and be mad at stuff. Forget about the fact that, a lot of it ends up not being true.
Yeah. And that's really on all sides of the political spectrum. I don't think it is healthy to get your news from anywhere that's trying to make money.
And it's hard. That's, I've got some good friends who do not align with me politically, but we can have political talks. And one of the things we all agree on is it would be great if we could go back to the day of having newspapers.
Yes.
It came out once a day.
Yeah.
And the nightly news.
And just put everything away other times of the day.
Wouldn't that be great?
It would be great. It would be great.
Yeah.
One thing, speaking of the news, one thing that made me worry even more for my friend Tim, did you see the weatherman start crying?
Yes, y'all.
Get out of Florida. The weathermen are crying.
Have you seen all the craziness of people who are saying that we control the weather?
Oh my gosh. Look, when I worked at Geico, I sent the weather out every day, and there were people, I promise you, who thought that I was like doing that all on my own. Like, I moved storms and stuff. I was like, y'all, I don't, like, I'm just copying and pasting from the National Weather Service and putting it in one place.
Many of you will remember Luke and Laura from General Hospital. And there was a storyline on General Hospital. I think it was Victor Cassadine. Victor Cassadine had a weather machine. Now, this was in like the 80s. I didn't watch General Hospital then, but I caught up on it later when, of course, he came back to life from being dead.
For the 5th time, probably.
Right? Yeah. But like, that's what Did
It
they
was a
watch too
made
much
up
General Hospital in
soap
their
opera.
early life? What a
Come on,
can't.
people.
I
Come on.
can't. And what do we do with people like that? I was
I
listening to a podcast today. I was listening to the Daily from the New York Times, and they were talking about NAFTA. How's that? How's that as a blast from the past?
NAFTA.
NAFTA.
Wow.
They played video clips of the debate on the House floor about NAFTA, and y'all, I got so nostalgic for the time in our life where we used to have policy debates
Look at that.
about
Imagine.
trade agreements. Where now we're talking about weather machines. What
Heaven forbid.
happened?
Heaven forbid.
Get off my
Heaven help
lawn.
us.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. I think
Anyway,
what's making me anxious about the whole thing is that I'm still heartbroken over North Carolina.
yeah, it's just awful.
I was just up there. I go up there all the time because I'm close to the mountains. So I've been up there a lot while I'm in school. I grew up going to camp up there. Fortunately, the camp that I went to, I mean, suffered no major damage, but literally down the road was gone. And um one thing I heard that really makes a lot of sense because we just drove through there going up to when I went to Dollywood. We drove through all those roads. All the roads follow the rivers and the creeks. And so since every one of them flooded, every one of them washed away. And that is where the first thing I wanted to bring to light kind of comes in because there can be the darkest days, especially for those lovely people in North Carolina and Tennessee and South Georgia and
Augusta.
Augusta, all of those people that are in, hopefully now some of them are getting out of the actual darkness, but it can feel so dark and dim. And then there's just a little, I always look for the hope. And there is
What Mr. Rogers told us to do.
I know, look for the helpers. And so the story and a lot more have come out since then because they're not just they're using a variety of ways to get around up there. But one of the first stories that came out was about the pack mules taking people medicine up in the North Carolina mountains. And one of them was named Little Wayne. And it just of course. But they're nurses and doctors on horseback.
There was a book about that. Was it a Chris? I'm Googling it right now. Was it a Kristen Hanna book that we read?
Oh, maybe. I bet you're
No,
right. Kristen Hannah, our um
no, it was
fortune
JoJo
teller.
Boys. It was
Okay, there we
JoJo
go.
Boys. The Giver of Stars.
I love that.
It's a great book, but that's totally what it reminded me of.
Yeah. So I mean now they've gotten herds of goats, horses,
I saw the goats.
pack mules. So the Cajun Navy, which I love those people, the Cajun Navy. Started in Katrina where they would get in their little John boats and go around and save everybody. Well, now they have like this nationwide network of not only boaters, but apparently people with donkeys and horses. And they go into these places where nobody's able to get there and they get there. And yes, the army and the government send helicopters, and those are great. They can drop supplies wherever, but to get the people, the doctors and the nurses, where they need to go with medicine for these beautiful people, it's just been, a little bit of a light to see. And I hope that they feel that, and it gives me a little bit of hope for humanity.
I read the sweetest story. I can't remember now. It was on Twitter. I can't remember who it was, but I want to say it was the army had finally gotten in. They're going house to house. They went into this little old lady's house and they're like, yeah, ma'am, we've got supplies. What do you need? She said, I don't need anything. I got everything I need. You sure you don't need blah blah? Nope, I've got everything I need. And young man, can I give you some lunch while you're here?
Love it.
I mean,
Come
been
on.
up there without power for,
Come
2 weeks
on.
now. God love her.
Well, the other thing that really, I mean, this is how layered you have to think about a crisis like this, is that not only are they taking nurses and doctors and all these pack animals, they're having to take farriers with them
Hmm.
because and each team has a farrier and there are not that many farriers in the world.
Right.
So each team has a farrier that goes with them in case something happens to one of the horses or donkeys. They can reshoe them right there and keep going. They aren't stuck, just like the people are stuck. So just the thought process that you have to go through just to get up these very narrow, what's left of a country road is it's just to have that level of logistical thought is amazing. So I don't know. I just needed a little hope this week, and I feel like that
Sure.
was a great place to start. So,
For
um,
sure. And
I
this
love
is
it.
usually when we're at our best,
Yes.
which is why it's so frustrating that there are
Oh,
forces out there who are trying to turn it into something it's not.
right. Well, and that are saying things like, "Well, we shouldn't have to." Well, yes, we should.
Right.
It takes
Right.
everybody. It takes the Army Corps of Engineers rebuilding roads. It takes the Chinook helicopters. It takes the donkeys and the farriers and the Cajun Navy.
Exactly.
It takes all of those people. And to imply otherwise is just maddening.
If you, I mean, like, if you, people that say that have obviously never lived through something like that. Like, I was in Nashville when they had the big flood, and we got stuck at my sister's for a couple of days without power and couldn't get out because everything was flooded. And
Yeah.
she had moved into her neighborhood like, I don't know, 6 weeks before that.
Yeah.
And so talk about meeting all your neighbors.
Yeah.
She didn't have a grill,
Yeah.
but we have plenty of frozen food because we just made a Trader Joe's run. So we're like, here, have all our frozen pizzas to put on your grill. And,
Yeah.
like, met all her neighbors that way.
Sure.
Like, you can't, there's no way to get through a crisis like that without helping your neighbor.
I saw a lady talking about that very thing. They're very isolated up on the top of a mountain in North Carolina. Nobody could get to them. And so the neighborhood got together and they built a fire pit in the middle of the neighborhood and they all brought their whatevers they wanted to cook, their hot dogs or whatever they had. And so they sit around every night because they have no power and they're lonely. So they sit around this fire every night together.
It was, I mean, Julie, her neighbor, like 3 doors up the street, Will was probably in the first or second grade when
Hmm.
she bought that house. And the neighbor up the street, until the day they moved out when Will was in high school, every Christmas Eve, he would turn this off if you have little ears listening. Okay. Every Christmas Eve, he would come and he had jingle bells, and he would come under Will's bedroom window and ho, 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 and jingle bells on Christmas Eve.
Amazing. All because they met in a crisis
Uh-huh.
and trauma bonded. It's
Yeah,
trauma bonding.
1000%. 1000%.
So anyway, I look for the hope. I found it a little bit. I hope we don't have to use pack mules in Florida.
Listen, listen.
I don't know.
The other thing I got tickled at is I saw a tweet. It's a guy that's actually like a political guy in Florida that I followed for a long time. He's like, my car's already totaled, my boat's already gone,
Yep.
my garage is already flooded. Like, okay, Milton, come on.
Well,
Like,
that's part I think of the Tampa issue is that all that trash is just sitting on the
great.
street and it that will be flying through the air, y'all.
I know.
So that's scary. So anyway, Tim Farrow, if you're listening, which I know you're not because you don't know how to use a podcast because you still use an Atlas paper map, but get out. Get out, Tim Farrow. Forget the squirrel. Save yourself. The squirrel will be fine. The squirrel will find a place to hide. Ooh. So anyway, but he's a grown man. I mean, I guess he's not acting like it, but whatever. So anyway, next week maybe we'll have a Tim Farrow update.
I hope so.
So the other thing I did on Friday, y'all, I left the house.
I'm so proud of you.
I got dressed, I put on makeup, and I left the house on Friday. And I went down to Dunwoody United Methodist Church. My friend Joy is their director. They have a whole theater ministry. It's a big church. And so this theater ministry put on Sister Act.
Yeah.
It was so good. You
What
know,
age group do these people?
local theater's never going to be like Broadway.
Well, what age group were they?
Oh, this were adults.
Okay. Because I asked because maybe 2 or 3 years before I left Noonan, one of our choir directors at the church, Kathy Bizarre, decided she wanted to do Sister Act. Or was it Sister Act or was it Nonsense?
Probably Nonsense. Sister Act had some cuss words in it. I was shocked. I was like, you just said damn in the church house more than once, and I love it.
Listen, I was Dolly in Hello Dolly. Like I was Nellie in, South Pacific. This is my thing. I can do this. I could no more do that.
Yeah.
I could get the lines and I could sing. The choreography wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So listen, I'm impressed.
It was really good. My friend Joy has been awarded over her lifetime many, 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 many local theater awards for best performances. She's got a beautiful voice. I love her. And she's directing these things now at Dunwoody and doing a great job. And I was so glad I got out. So the lesson here, people, is if you live in Florida and all the storms pass, go to local theater.
Absolutely.
And, just support it. If you're used to Broadway shows, that's great. I love them. There's nothing like it. But there's also nothing like seeing your friends and family do wonderful things. And so I highly recommend
it. Even complete strangers.
It was worth showering.
Like those people they've been working hard, y'all.
They've been working real hard.
And their brains are old, and it's hard to remember that choreography.
It's really good. It was so good. So get out of the house every once in a while at least. So love it. Love it, love it, love it. So that was Friday night. So then, y'all, Saturday happened. And every year in college football, there's one Saturday that just comes out of nowhere and shocks everybody about everything. Oh, Freddie's into it today. Freddie is so excited to hear about college football. So they were in Berkeley. And when I tell you the cloud of the Mary Jane, they talked about it several times at 4 a.m. or whatever it was when they started, was thick because they were all super punchy.
Oh, that's funny.
Or that early in the morning. And it was really funny. There were a lot of pot jokes. It was great. It was really good. And then to prove that they had inhaled some things, Nick Saban took the tie off of his body and spun it around his head like a helicopter. And I thought, if his shirt comes off, I'm out. I don't want to see Pat McAfee with his shirt off, and I've seen that too much. If Nick Saban takes his shirt off, I'm done.
Now I'm contemplating what a shirtless Nick Saban looks like.
Well, fortunately, it was just the tie, so I can't tell you.
Sorry.
I can't tell you. So the other thing that they did was they made me cry twice. Once was about Georgia, which, what the heck? So if you watched it, there's a great, now Freddie's on the couch. There's a great story that they did about the men. Everybody's seen them. They've been on every podcast, or not podcast. They've been on every game cast, every TV, whatever. The bald men of this one family that paint the Georgia bulldog on their head. It started with the grandfather, then it went to the father. He died. Then it went to the younger brother because the older brother is an introvert, which I totally identify with. I'm the most extroverted introvert on the planet. He was Amanda, he was much, much younger than we are, and he unexpectedly passed away this
Oh
summer.
no.
Yeah. And so the story was that this year it's with the older brother,
Oh,
and he was crying
guess so.
walking into the stadium. I was crying watching him cry. I can't watch a man cry. And I was like, why am I crying about Georgia? This is terrible. They're going to take my Auburn card, but they didn't, because it was a very sweet story. And he even said, he was like, this is not my thing. I don't want to do this, but I have to do this. And it was really sweet. So if you can find it on the YouTube, go find it. And then, so every week they pick a student to kick a field goal because Pat McAfee was a kicker. And he always asked them before they kick, have you ever said anything bad about a kicker? And all of them say, well, yes, of course. When you miss it, I mean, you shouldn't miss it. That's your one job. And then they get up there and they hardly ever hit it. I mean, it's just ridiculous. This little kid got up there in Vans, checkered Vans, and kicked $100,000 field goal.
Good for him.
And Pat McAfee, who, I have mixed emotions about, also added $100,000 to the $500,000 donation that College Game Day was making to North Carolina. So,
Pat McAfee.
I mean, every once in a while he'll redeem himself. I think
$500,000 seems light for College Game Day.
I wasn't gonna, look. Home Depot, I hope, is Home Depot sponsors College Game Day, so I'm very hopeful that Home Depot, and I'm sure they are. I know Lowe's is definitely out there. It's like in the thick of it. So we're just gonna hope that. Whatever. And then after College Game Day, y'all, the wildest college football day I have seen in a long time occurred. 5 top 10 ranked teams lost to unranked teams.
All I'm gonna say is go back and listen to last week's episode.
Yep.
Because one Katie Griffiths might have said, Mandee is legit.
Yep. And I really believed that. Did I believe they could beat Alabama? I wasn't sure about that, but I knew y'all were a lot better than everybody was giving you credit for. And so, I mean, we'll just kind of gloss over the fact that Auburn lost to Georgia. We're just going to move past that. But Mandee was watching baseball, and I was texting her things like anchor down. There might have been some F-bombs in the middle of all those words.
Well,
but
that's
she was
like to my sister, because my sister,
yes,
the most recent baseball national championship 2019, she went to Omaha, and she's like, I don't know why, but I just have this overwhelming urge to just say, anchor the fuck down.
well, I joined in that chant over and over. But man, I texted Mandy. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. She's like, I'm watching baseball. I said, don't stop watching baseball. Don't you turn it. Don't breathe wrong. I'm not moving.
And listen, you were one of about 10 people who were texting me.
Don't do it.
And all of them, I'm like, I'm not watching. I can't watch. I can't turn it on. I haven't been watching it, so I cannot turn it on now.
It was just glorious.
Yeah.
But Missouri lost. Alabama lost. I mean, it was just a bloodbath.
UT lost.
Tennessee lost to Arkansas. It was a bloodbath of a day. And so I mentioned on here before, I do not bet money. I don't gamble money. I just don't. I like to spend money on other things in my life. But I do, for my competitive spirit, have like we guess the games each week. And my percentages of picking correctly usually run about 75 to 80%. Saturday, my pick percentage was 47.
Well, who can blame you?
And so, it was so wild. It was so much fun to watch. Everybody was looking at this weekend, which have a lot of top 10 matchups. And so I was like, "Ooh, October 12th is going to be crazy." Nope. Never going to top last week.
But
It's
I
just
mean,
not going to do it.
that being, Vandy has such a challenge because they are so rigorous academically that it's hard. They have a challenge recruiting.
Yes.
Um, and so I was talking to my old boss, Mike, today about a case that we're working on. His take was, would you please tell Will thank you? Because it seems in this college football season that Vanderbilt and Auburn have switched places, and
No,
he's the
Auburn,
only common denominator I can come up with.
Auburn always sucks.
But he
I
was
mean,
talking about
we
Clark Lee, the
we
head football.
seriously could have another 3-9 season. We're
Listen,
working on it
don't
real
think,
hard.
don't think about it. But Mike was saying he saw an interview with Clark Lee, the Vanderbilt head coach. And his take on it was they had not been like they were trying to do the thing of just ignoring the portal. And so this year
Yeah.
they just brought in fully. They have 51 new players on their team. And he said they are very particular in who they recruit on the portal.
You
Because
have
they
to
have
be.
to be. And that the kids that they are interested in are typically older and they now know what they're looking for as well. And so that's been a really good match. So
FSU is the other extreme and what shows you what can happen when you do it very wrong.
But it just, I mean, those VD, I've been to
that little quarterback.
I've been to plenty of Vanderbilt football games in my life. And when I tell y'all that every game, most games I've been to have been UT games. After Thanksgiving. And when I tell y'all that those games are more orange than black and gold, because they're like, you keep it. And Lewis says, my brother-in-law, he went to Vanderbilt and then went to Vanderbilt med school. And he always talks about like back in the day, like the late 80s, early 90s. He's like, there weren't UT fans that lived in Nashville.
Right.
So you didn't get this. It was still full of Vanderbilt fans. He said, but there are now so many UT fans living in Nashville that and it's an easy ticket to get.
Yeah.
And so they come to these games and it's just awful for those kids. It's just awful. So just the fact that they had that experience. And of course, my sister's still really good friends with a bunch of guys that played football in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And she said she was texting with them, and that was the thing that all of them said. I'm just so happy for these kids.
Oh, well, your little quarterback, his whole family was there and just so excited. I don't think he's on scholarship.
He's not.
I
How
mean,
about his interview?
if he's not on scholarship by today, I mean, we need to check on that. I mean, he deserves it. He
How
did
about
a
his
great
interview?
job. So cute.
God chose me for this. And it's like in that same interview, then he says, Andy's fucking turned.
I know. I love it. He's the cutest thing. I love it so much. The other thing that I love that they did, they totally trolled Saban because 2 weeks ago he had been in an interview with Pat McAfee and said, because really, and my note in the show notes is this: any given Saturday, any team can win in the SEC. It is a gauntlet. You never know what's going to happen. I'm going to add and beyond to that now because Lincoln Riley lost, and that makes me happy because he's a turd. But he sat with Pat McAfee and said the easiest place to play in the SEC is Vanderbilt.
He said every place it's hard to win everywhere in the SEC except
Vanderbilt. That's how he put it. Well, they played at the end of the game when everyone was charging the field. They played that on the Jumbotron as they took the goalpost down and then walked the goalpost 3 miles to the river. I mean, the whole thing was just amazing.
I don't think people understood like where Vanderbilt is in relation to where the Cumberland is. And they're like, well, yeah, they're walking it downtown. I'm like, y'all, that's not a short walk.
No. It was miles.
And then they had, in fact, I meant to listen. I didn't listen to it today, but I saw something today of like the scanner, the police scanner.
Oh, I would love that.
They were escorting them
I
down
love it.
Broadway. They weren't trying to stop them.
No,
Escorting
I
them
love it.
down Broadway.
I
It
mean,
was so fun.
it was just great. It was so
Why
great.
why did all the boys take their shirts off?
Because they can.
Testosterone is a real thing.
It is.
Go back and look at those videos at all those boys
Yep.
without their shirt. What are y'all doing? I'm telling you, teenage boys are scary.
Scary and smelly. So all that happened. It was just such a great day. And then Tennessee lost. You know, the Alabama fans, the funniest thing about that whole shebang is the one thing that a lot of them are pissed about is that their new coach wore a t-shirt to the game to coach it. I'm like, that's what you're mad about? They haven't beat Vandy since they haven't lost to Vandy since 1984. I was 7. And that's what you're mad about?
Hmm.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing to watch. So, that totally made up for Auburn losing to Georgia. Totally made up for it. And then Tennessee, I mean, it was just glorious. So I was here for the whole thing. The other thing that made me very happy was that I have now seen a bunch of Big Ten people complaining about the CBS coverage and Gary Danielson, which just makes me so happy. It's not just us. I mean, they're just bad. And this proves it. Is that sorry. Today is bird fly into the window day. So I have kamikaze birds if you hear things whacking on the windows.
Have you gotten to that West Wing episode yet?
Yes. But they don't just peck at it, they fly into it and break their necks. It's great. It'll be carnage out there in a minute. It's fabulous. So anyway, they're complaining about Gary, which just makes me so happy. And then I don't really follow the NFL, but y'all, did you see Deshaun Watson walk off the field in the middle of the game?
Listen, it's just a bad situation.
I don't understand.
They're stuck. They're stuck. They can't do anything.
No.
They've either just got to eat the rest of his contract and get a new, which I was listening to a podcast, I can't remember which one about it. And, whoever it was saying, that's what I thought they'd do. I just,
Yeah.
The Cleveland Browns signed Deshaun Watson, who was a great quarterback.
Traded for him on purpose.
And is now not. But they signed him thinking he was still going to be a great quarterback to a gigantic contract. And so this commentator was saying, I figured what they would do is just eat it, put him on the sidelines, put a different, and they're like, no, they are playing that man.
And apparently it's out of the coach's hands. Like from what I've seen, the owner and the general manager are not allowing the coach to take him out of the game. It was only because he walked off the field in the middle of the game that they were able to put somebody else in. I mean, okay, so say you're Deshaun Watson and you don't want to play there anymore. Okay. But who's going to pick you up now?
Nobody.
Nobody wants that.
Mm-mm.
It's so short-sighted. It's so unethical, really. I mean, it's terrible work ethic. It's bad all the way around. And I just could not believe it.
Yeah, it's bad.
So bad. So anyway, that's the world of sports. It was the craziest weekend I've seen in a long time. So anyway, what have you been up to?
You haven't even talked about the crazy baseball.
Well, that's your area of expertise, ma'am. I was going to let you talk about that.
That was also crazy town. The Braves are out, as we expected.
Lamented already.
God love them. Bye-bye. So we are at the point where there are 4 teams in each division, each league, whatever it's called, American League, yeah, in each league.
Yeah.
The teams in each league left. So for the National League, it's the Phillies versus the Mets,
Okay.
and the Dodgers versus the Padres.
Okay.
So the Padres are who the Braves lost to, and their fan base is so nice.
Okay.
And so all the Braves fans, like on Twitter that I follow, were all sort of like, you know what? I'm rooting for the Padres now, just
All right.
because their fans were just so nice. The Padres have Manny Machado, who has been a problematic player in his life, but he started playing when he was his brain was not fully formed,
Amen.
and he has matured. His very big ears, I will say, his very big ears. The Padres are the team of the ears.
There we go.
Lots of players with big ears on
All
the
right.
Padres. But so Manny Machado is sort of their leader. They also have Fernando Tatis Jr.
Okay.
who came on big like 4 years ago, probably. His dad was a major leaguer. He got signed to a gigantic contract by the Padres. The Padres had an owner named Peter Seidler who was willing to spend money. And so like four or 5 years ago is when all this Padres resurrection started, because he was just spending big time bucks. That's when he got Machado. They got Tatis. They have a player who could be the rookie of the year this year. Their center fielder is a kid named Jackson Merrill, who has been great. And then their left fielder is a guy named Jurickson Profar. That's a name, right?
Is that like Russian? Like not Russian.
I don't know where he's from, actually. But he had struggled, and I want to say, I think he started this year on a minor league contract with the Padres, but has come up and has had a great, phenomenal year.
Love
So in the Dodgers won the first game. They played Friday night and Saturday night, or Saturday night and Sunday, I can't remember. Anyway, but the Dodgers won the first game, and the Dodgers have our beloved Freddie. They have Mookie, who we love.
So that's now I don't know who to pull for.
So I like a lot more of the players on the Dodgers,
right,
than I do the Padres. Fernando Tatis, when he came up, was big time star, big time. He was in a motorcycle accident and hurt his shoulder and was out for a bit. And then when he came back from that, he tested positive for PEDs. So then he was suspended. So he was basically out for like a year. And so a lot of people are like, he cheated. Well, he's not cheating now, and he's tearing the cover off the ball.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, he did. And he was held accountable and whatever.
Right.
But so anyway, so the first game, the Dodgers won. Mookie is not Mookieing. Mookie is I think he's 0-4, going back to last year. He is not doing well in the postseason. Our boy Freddie sprained his ankle really, really badly right at the end of the regular season.
Oh no.
So he's day to day as to whether he's even going to be in the game. He did start the first game. He had 2 hits, and then that ding-a-ling stole a base on his bad ankle. I just love that man.
I know, but you go, Freddie, we need you for the rest of the postseason. Come on, dude.
Oh, so they were I can't remember if they were tied or if the Dodgers were behind, and Shohei came up and hit a gigantic 3-run home run. Showed more emotion than you have ever seen Shohei show. It was fun. It was fun to see Shohei that excited. Everybody, Shohei's been the best player in baseball, following Mike Trout, who was the best player in baseball. Right. And both of them played for the Angels, who never made the postseason. So this is the first time the best player in baseball has made the postseason, and other than Ronald Acuna Jr. last year. But everybody's really excited.
Doesn't he get a big bonus? Like in his
Some
contract,
contracts,
his
some
contract
contracts,
is different than
his
everybody
contract,
else's.
yeah, his contract is deferred. He doesn't really get paid for like 10 years.
Okay,
And
okay.
then he gets paid $1 billion.
A billion.
I think everybody associated with the organization, like the clubbies, the ushers, like anybody that's employed by the organization, and the team gets to vote on how they split out their shares.
Okay.
So I think everybody gets something for making it to the postseason. And then some players do. They were talking about that on the podcast this week too. It was like you get $50,000 if you make it to the World Series. They're like, okay, great.
Okay.
But anyway, so the Dodgers won that first game. It was a close game. It was, whatever. Well, then the second game, in the can't remember if it was the first inning. I think it must have been the first inning.
Yeah.
Mookie bats second and hit what appeared to be a home run. Jurickson Profar,
I saw that.
left field, has his glove in the stands, and you can't tell whether he caught it or not. Mookie is running the bases and is lifting his arm up. They put a run on the scoreboard, and then Jurickson turns around. He's standing in front of the fans, like jumping up and down, and then turns around and he had caught the ball. Mookie did not, in fact, hit a home run.
It was, if I was a Padres fan, it would have been one of the most exciting moments in baseball. As a Mookie fan, I was like, you little son of a gun.
So, and he did,
I don't think it was
he caught the
purposeful.
ball. He caught the ball, and then he stood there and he kind of jumped up and down right there in front of the fans for a minute. But it wasn't like excessive.
No, and I don't think that he realized. I don't think he realized till he turned around that people thought that it was a home run.
He was interacting with the guy that almost caught the ball.
It wasn't, but it was still like just one of those happenstance moments. It was pretty awesome.
So that had happened. Tatis, I think, had already hit a home run in the first inning. So it was, they thought it was tied up. Nope, it's not tied up. I think the next time, then Flaherty was pitching. He strikes out Manny Machado, and as Manny Machado's walking back to the dugout, Flaherty says, "Sit the F down," like yelling at him, right? Ooh. So then the next time Tatis is up to bat, he gets hit.
Oh, well. I'm sure it was not intentional. Insert eye roll.
Well, it probably wasn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, it really probably wasn't because they were behind. Like, it didn't make any sense to hit him.
Well,
meanwhile, Tatis is out. When he's out, and this always happens, and this has happened since he came back from his PED suspension. When he's out there in right field, the fans just give him holy hell, and he just bring it on, bring it on. It doesn't bother him at all. He laughs. He's like wiping fake tears away. He's egging them on the whole time.
Yeah.
Then, so Jurickson Profar, in the later innings, like fifth or sixth, he gets a baseball and runs it out and hands it to the fan who almost caught the home run ball, like to give him a ball.
Yeah.
Nice, right?
That is nice.
That guy immediately throws the ball back in.
Stop it. We don't need that right now. We have hurricanes happening. We don't need that right now.
Which then prompts other fans in left field. One throws a ball at Jurickson Profar.
Stop it.
Then they start throwing beer.
Stop.
Then the fans in right field start throwing shit at Tatis. Like, the game was suspended for like 10 minutes.
Stop it. Come on, people.
Then supposedly Manny Machado, who plays third base right there by the LA Dodgers dugout, he and Jack Flaherty are still jawing back and forth. And then in the post-game news conference, the Dodgers manager claims that Manny Machado threw a ball at him. And when they asked Manny about it, he's like, I throw balls in the dugout all the time. that's where their bat boy is. I throw it to their bat boy in their dugout. What are you talking about? Well, then the Dodgers have submitted video of Manny throwing this
Oh, come
ball.
on.
And when you see it, it's like, after all that happened, when they were back in the dugout, Manny gathered everybody in for like a team meeting. And they proceeded to go on, and they hit 6 home runs in that game. They won
Done.
10-1.
See, that's what you don't. This is what happens.
Yeah.
Don't do
So
it.
that's that series. So they're tied 1-1, and they're going back. In fact, they're playing and starting. The Phillies and the Mets start in 15 minutes. Meanwhile, the Phillies and the Mets, who came back against the Braves in that doubleheader game in the late innings, did the same thing to the Phillies. So the Phillies ace pitcher, Zach Wheeler, who's a Georgia boy,
Love it.
had pitched 7 innings of basically perfect baseball. I mean, he was just unbelievable. But the Mets pitcher had done well as well. I think maybe they had 1 run, maybe 2. I can't remember what, but it was close. It was a close game. So when Zach Wheeler gets out, they start bringing in their closers who are like all-stars. And boy, howdy, the Mets just teed off on them. So the Mets won that first game. There's nothing better than watching the Phillies lose at home. It shuts those fans up in a hurry. It is nice talking. But then on Saturday, I was not watching Vanderbilt. I was watching the Phillies and the Mets. And again,
as instructed, by the way, as instructed.
The Phillies were struggling. They had not hit. And then Bryce Harper comes up in the 6th and hits a 2-run home run. And then Nick Castellanos, who may be the grossest Philly. He's just, you got Smelly Cat, who, has the beard and the long hair that's always wet. But Castellanos is like, when he takes his hat off, when he takes his cap off, he's got like a middle part and sort of a bob length, greasy. He's just gross. Well, then he hit a solo home run, and they tied it up, and then the Phillies, and then it went back and forth. Like the Mets came back, and then the Phillies, it was back and forth. It was such a good game. Yeah. Except the Phillies won. Yeah. Because Castellanos walked it off. So they are tied 1-1. They're playing in New York today. Dodgers and Padres are back in San Diego. And then in the American League, you've got the Yankees versus the Tigers. They have also split 2 games. So they're headed back to Detroit. They played 2 games in New York. And the Tigers won yesterday. Tarek Skubal, who's going to win the Cy Young Award, he was pitching for the Tigers. And the funniest thing, he comes off the mound and he's yelling at all this testosterone and adrenaline, man. Because he's walking off the mound, and he's usually pretty quiet, but he's walking off the mound at one point, and he yells up to this was in Cleveland. Sorry, I just got all confused. Anyway, Tarek Skubal, he yells up at the Cleveland fans and says, "Shut the F up." His mother, and the pitching ninja tweeted it, and his mother comments under that and just says, "Tarek Daniel!" ! Get
him, mama.
Get him, mama.
Get him, mama.
So yeah, sorry, the Yankees play the Royals. That's who they are split with. So they're going back to Kansas City. And then Detroit and Cleveland have also each split a game. So everything is tied up 1-1.
Love it.
So
it's going to be a wild postseason. I'm glad that you're watching that instead of Vandy, because that's why they won. That's the only reason they won. I'm sure of it.
And I will tell you this, speaking of broadcasters, Bob Costas.
Oh.
It's time for him to go home.
Yeah. He should have hung it up. Remember that year at the Olympics when he got severe pink eye or whatever it was? Yes. He should have stopped then. He should have stopped completely.
I mean, totally. He is calling the Yankees Royals game. And
is he the Yankees?
Well, so that when they go to these playoff games, they have national
Oh,
broadcasters.
okay, gotcha. Okay.
But yes, he is the Yankees,
Ugh.
and it's just
I'm
John
not a
Carlos
Costas fan.
Stanton hit into a double play. It was a great play by our boy Bobby Witt Jr. He made a great diving stop at shortstop, then executed the double
Yeah.
play, which is not hard against Giancarlo Stanton because that man can't run. And he's a big old boy and he cannot run.
Yeah.
And Bob Costas's call on it was not like, look at that amazing stop by Bobby Witt Jr. What a great play by him. He says, well, it's a 6-4-3 double play, and it's not Giancarlo's fault.
So I'm
What?
Costas, I was surprised when I saw that he was calling him because baseball's normally not his shtick. So that's interesting that they would even employ him
He
to do
always
that.
did sort of everything in NBC when he was there. He
Yeah, but
did
he wasn't ever really
basketball.
good at it. And it was usually like hosting the post-game show. It
Right,
wasn't actually
right.
calling the game.
Yeah,
I'm not a Costas fan.
it ain't good.
No. No,
So
no, no.
anyway, there's that. Okay, are you ready to tell us about some food?
I am. You know what? I'm gonna say the word once. I made another protein packed chicken meal.
Okay.
But when I tell y'all these were so good, these were delicious. Garlic Parmesan chicken meatloaves.
Yum.
They are delicious. I may or may not have used more garlic than it called for because I used garlic and I measure that with my heart. They're so good. They end up with a crunchy bottom. They're just delicious. Because I had a block of Gruyere that I had not used for something else, I used that. I put a little bit in them in the mix, and then I put some over the top. So good. But, with the portion sizes that I'm eating, even doing 4 meatloaves, mini meatloaves like it calls for, was too much. So I think next time, because I will make this again, it was very, very good. I think next time I'll either, not that I want to roll some more meatballs, but I'll either do them in that form or I've got a square muffin tin, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that would be the perfect size to get some crunchy edges because that was one of the best parts of this thing was the crunchy
Now,
edges.
do you have a cookie scoop?
I do.
I was just watching somebody I follow on Instagram last night was just talking about making meatballs with the scoop and just scooping them and putting them in the skillet and not worrying about making them a perfectly round
Oh,
ball, and how that just feels like self-care.
you know what? That's life changing right there.
So just use your cookie scoop and don't,
Life
just
changing. I love that.
there you go.
This week I'm making, I did sloppy joes, which I've put that recipe on here before, but I'm using turkey this time because, more P word protein, not any of the other P words, but, they're good. They're delicious. So, it just, just doing the best I can.
That's all you gotta do.
That's all I can do.
Here's the thing that if you like to cook and you enjoy cooking,
Yeah.
then that's one thing. Even when you do, there are times where you don't want to do it anymore.
Amen.
And so don't
Amen.
make it harder than
Hallelujah.
it has to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Especially, for those of us that work a full-time job or part-time with full-time school or whatever. I love to cook. And it showed during COVID when I made bread just about every day. But it does get to be a chore, especially when you have to add in the extra layers of, whatever healthy thing you're trying to do. So
That's
I
what
appreciate you saying that, Mandy.
you ever followed Half Baked Harvest?
No.
Name's Tegan something. I'm not. Every recipe she ever makes. I remember Birch recommended her to me and was like, "Yeah, except all of her recipes are 37,000 steps.
Yeah, I mean, that's
It's
just
like, I'm always just like, oh gosh, no, you don't have to do all that. And that's one of the things I love the most about Smitten Kitchen is she is one to be like, let me figure out how to make this a one bowl recipe.
yes.
Love that.
Well, and I don't know about you, if you've ordered it yet, but I just because it's Prime Day, not that it was on sale, only one thing that I had in my cart was on sale.
That's all right.
I
That was
mean,
true.
oh, it hurt my spirit, the total, but even for Amazon, but whatever. So it was that Caro Chambers cookbook. So I'm really excited to get that.
Yeah. I made
Um,
the Brussels sprout thing again last night.
yeah, so I'm excited. I think that'll have some things like you said that are quicker and easier and
And the way she
when
like
we don't feel like cooking.
I did finally subscribe to her Substack, like paid subscription to her Substack.
Okay.
And one of the things I like about her recipes is she's real big with like substitutions. You
Okay.
know, like if you don't like this, then use this. Or if you don't like that, then
I
use this.
love
And so
that. I
like
love
for
that.
every single recipe. So
Well, I love to read cookbooks like a novel. So my goal for the next time I have food, which is 2 weeks from now, is to have read that cookbook and kind of give my take on it as my food. So I'm very excited to get it. It is on Amazon, so if you want to get it, Mandee recommended it last week, and so we're gonna with her recipe. So I'm gonna see what it's like, and I can't wait. The other thing that was in my Amazon uh, cart was the very first thing on your list, Mandee, for your favorites. In fact, I got two. I got one for myself and one for my race, religion, and reception history professor.
oh, good.
Because I think he'll like it very
Yeah.
much. He does a lot of that kind of work. So, so tell us about that and the rest of your favorites. I can't wait.
So the first thing is Wright Thompson, my boyfriend. His new book, which is called The Barn. I have not read it yet. I have it on my Libro account because I can listen to the dulcet tones of Wright Thompson
Oh.
all day long. I thought I definitely want to hear him read this.
I thought about that, but I really want a copy of it because I think I'll be able to use it in some sermons. What
Yeah,
I'm
me too.
thinking.
I will also
Um,
recommend. He was on Pablo Torre
yeah,
Finds Out
I'll listen to it today.
talking about the book, which of course I was already going to buy it because he's my boyfriend. But then hearing him talk about it on this
Oh,
podcast.
so good.
So Wright grew up in the Delta, in the Mississippi Delta,
Mhm.
and the book is about the barn is the location where Emmett Till was murdered. And so Wright's take on this is sort of a global view of how that one event, how it happened, sort of the effects afterwards, the interplay between like fathers and sons, which is always a running theme in his writing.
Mhm.
And so just listen to him talk about how, he grew up in Mississippi, and when he was taught about the Civil War, they actually called it the War of Northern Aggression.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I have
In
two,
fact,
but I
I have
thought it was
said
a
that
joke.
in my classes at Candler. In fact, this same professor, um, in my Old Testament class with him, he's my favorite professor, Dr. Kemp. He's great. He's a former attorney turned Hebrew Bible scholar. He reads 7 languages, most of which are dead. I mean, it's crazy. So he's uber smart. But he said in that class, because we talk a lot about scripture and how it's become the American national whatever.
Mhm.
We could do a whole podcast series on that.
Yes, we could.
Um, but he in class said, "Well, do you know what they called the Civil War in the South?" And I was the only one because he and I are the same age, so I get his cultural references. But I was the only one that
I mean,
said
I've always heard that.
the War of Northern Aggression, and people were shocked.
No, I mean, I've always heard that.
The younger
I just
generation
thought
has
it was
not
a
heard that.
joke.
Yeah,
I just
it's
thought
not
it
a
was a joke.
joke.
Um,
Crazy.
so yeah, so and then Wright talks about the fact that his grandfather or his
His
great
namesake, his grandfather.
was the leader of what he called the white collar KKK.
Yep.
In Mississippi, and how it was basically a way for these white men to use their power and authority to
Coerce others.
to carry out their prejudicial predilections.
I really, not to go down a long rabbit hole about this book, but I'm so excited to get it because a lot of what he said about reconciling things that your family did and not wanting to capitalize on your reconciliation of it because that feels icky too, but to own it and to speak it and to move forward and heal from it. So I identify that with that very heavily for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, he talked a lot on the podcast about, and I think probably most of us at this point have heard understand the history of the Confederate statues.
Yes.
But he did a great job of outlining how he's like, I love the Confederate flag growing up.
In high school.
I loved it. But then you learn sort of the history of the fact that these statues were not erected honoring these 18-year-old boys who went off to war and died.
Nope.
They were erected in the face of Jim Crow ending, in the face of the civil rights movement gaining some traction. And so once you sort of learn that and you understand the philosophy behind it opens your eyes to things. And so
absolutely,
unless and until we are all willing to do that work, things can't really be healed in our country. And so I think that that's part of why what Wright is doing is so important, because it's sort of a guidebook for all of us to take a look at that.
I'm in a lot of classes this semester. They just so happen to overlap about a lot of those things. And look, I'm a white girl whose family has been in the South since the 1700s. So, it's there. And the fact that my friends that are Black and come from that line of people are able to see me makes me feel guilty a lot. So the fact that he and a lot of other really bad things happen in my family tree. There are a lot of good people and there are a lot of really bad people. But the fact that he gives voice to that, I'm probably going to cry when I read this book because I think it's going to help me give voice to a lot of my feelings that I have. And, so anyway, I'm very excited to get the book. I cannot wait to read it. And I applaud him for putting himself out there like this because it's very hard. I mean, I just sit in class and I feel guilty about stuff. I cannot imagine writing the book that he did and saying things like, my namesake was a very bad human and I can't change my name at this point. So I have to just own it. And that's huge. And I just applaud him for doing that. So
in that vein, another thing I would recommend to you is a Google Mitch Landrieu. And I think he was on David Axelrod's podcast.
Okay.
I think it was. But he is the former mayor of New Orleans.
Okay.
And he gave a great speech when they were removing the Confederate statues in New Orleans, and that's why Axelrod had him on. To talk about all this. But that podcast, I would encourage you to listen to that too.
Okay. I'm looking it up right now.
So Wright Thompson, The Barn, and his he was on Pablo Torre Finds Out. That was a good episode too.
Go listen to that episode. It's very powerful.
And sort of in that same kind of theme, actually. I didn't mean to do that. This next recommendation is a book called Horse by Geraldine Brooks. And it was a really good book. It's another one that kind of jumps from time
Okay.
to
I've heard
time.
good things.
It starts like in modern time. I think it was 2019. Following some folks in DC. And first of all, I loved that. Like I loved reading about,
Yes.
hear about DC. They were not in politics.
Yeah.
One was a student and one worked at the Smithsonian. And so, but it was just fun to, have a book set in DC. That was fun.
Yeah.
But the running through line of it all across all the timelines and all the people is a horse that was born just before the Civil War broke out. And so the whole story is connected through that horse and the people that were associated with that horse.
Okay.
And so it's interesting the way she manages to tie all of that together. But
Awesome.
the stable boy who was there when the horse was born, and then trained it to race and all that is like one of the main characters back in the Civil War. His dad had managed to buy his freedom. So his dad was free, and was saving money to buy him, but then instead fell in love and got married and bought his wife instead of his son, who was pretty much grown at that point. Yeah.
Ooh.
But yeah, so it's got that sort of timeline. Then it's got the like modern timeline of the Smithsonian. The girl at the Smithsonian is like she studies. I can't remember now exactly. Like in any event, they have the skeleton of that horse at the Smithsonian, and so
like,
and it
really?
was like. And it was like, I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
But it was
you never
like
know. Some people find
Mhm.
these weird stories.
But it was up in like storage and nobody knew the history of this horse. Like this, it would be like having
Yeah.
Secretariat.
Yeah.
Okay. And so she brings it down. So she's working on that. Meanwhile, the guy that she sort of started dating is helping his rude, prejudiced neighbor, like after her husband died, like get some of her stuff to the street. And he just takes this painting and it's of the horse.
Stop.
And so like all these things are like,
Yeah.
coming together. So, and then there's a lady in New York whose mom loved horses. And she actually owned like a descendant of the one from the Civil War. So anyway, all of these stories are all tied together, but it's, it gets into a lot of the race complications,
Yes.
both modern times and back in the Civil War. So anyway, it was really good. I enjoyed it. So
I can't wait. That's definitely on my list.
the next one's just sort of random. The Natchez Trace. I feel like I've mentioned the Natchez Trace before.
I just started following it, so you haven't, because I do everything you tell me.
Okay. The Instagram account is fine. But if y'all have not ever driven the Natchez Trace,
I haven't.
And you're looking for something to do for fall break, there are no hurricanes currently on the Natchez Trace. It would at least in the northern part of the trace, I bet the leaves are starting to turn and I bet it's really pretty. The Natchez Trace runs from just outside Nashville to Natchez, Mississippi. It is a national park. The road itself is a national park. It has stops all along the way that range from historical sites to nature, like a waterfall. You can hike, an easy little hike out to a waterfall. It's just delightful. It's just a delightful experience. I've driven it twice. The first time was when I was living in Nashville and I just had to bug out. And so Etta and I got in the car and got on at the top of the trace and drove all the way to Natchez. And I didn't want to come home. And then the second time, Will and I did it for his spring break when he was about 10 or 11, maybe.
I love it.
And so, but so you can stop, like you start in Nashville. I usually spend the first night in Tupelo. So then you can do all the Elvis stuff, which is, just off the trace,
Hello.
right? Then I usually spend the second night in Jackson. So, all the fun Jackson stuff you want to do.
Love
and then
it.
you end in Natchez. And then when Will and I did it, we went on down to Baton Rouge. So it's just a delightful.
And if I remember correctly, because I've always wanted to do it, but I've never done it, Natchez has a really big antique weekend or market or something. And I can't believe I've never been over there for that. And so that is a great idea and something that I, in my spare time,
Mm-hmm. Should do. But yeah,
will look forward to doing.
it's great to do like with kids because give
Yeah.
them the map and let them read about the
Yeah.
places where you can stop. There's Indian mounds. There's old
Right.
tobacco farms, tobacco barns. There's one place that was a whole little town. There's a Methodist church. But it was built on a spring and the spring dried up. And so they all just left. And so there's this whole ghost town
That's
right there.
crazy.
But there's a
it.
lot of Lewis and Clark.
Okay.
So that's what the trace was. It was they went from the Mississippi River up to Nashville, and there was a railroad, I think, up there. But I can't remember if it was Lewis or Clark, but one of them died. Like you can go to their grave right there.
Look at that.
But it's good because it's a road trip. But you're getting in and out, and you're doing nature,
Yeah.
you're doing history, you're doing. The first time I drove it, I also stopped in Kosciuszko, I think is how you say it, which is the one Oprah Winfrey. Because yes, of course I did.
I would suggest if I was going to do it, I might take the True South stops and overlap them.
So the first time I did it, the Southern Foodways Alliance still had their app.
And I need them to do that again. Can we talk to our boyfriends about that, please?
It's such a great app. So I would, when I didn't have service half the time, but when I, had service, I would look at the map, went and got some tamales in Mississippi. I went to a place called the Biscuit Pit.
Stop it.
Of course I did. Yeah, all based on the Southern Foodways Alliance app. It was fabulous.
So if you could overlap the two, what a great. I love that you did that. I wish that app was still active.
Yeah.
John T, if you're listening.
I know, right? So anyway, that was sort of random, but I was just looking at their Instagram account last night. And it looked like the leaves were starting to change.
Love it.
Yeah, and when you get to Nashville, you got like Leaper's Fork, which is a cute little town outside of Nashville. It's where the Isbels used to live. Looks like Amanda currently has the house.
I was about to say one of them may still live there.
Looks like Amanda currently has the house. But yeah, and then Franklin, it's not far. When you get in fact, the start of the trace is right beside the Loveless Cafe. So you can have yourself a big breakfast and then hit the trace. It's delightful. My next thing is I was on a mission for some soft jeans. I wanted some soft jeans. So I think I mentioned Susie and I had gone shopping.
Yes.
The first pair of soft jeans that I saw were of the variety that we're seeing a lot right now, where they have those tiny little pockets on the hip.
Oh.
And I was like, and she just looked at me, she's like, you cannot wear those.
No, first of all, they're useless.
Those
pockets are useless.
Anything accentuating my hips. Thank you.
And
but I have linked a pair that I got at J. Crew Factory that I do like. I would say I got my normal size. I think you could probably size down because they've got a little bit of stretch to them. And so like by the end of the day, they're real comfy.
Yeah.
But these are some soft jeans that don't have the silly hip pockets that I like. So I linked to those. And then the next thing just made me laugh. My friend Elizabeth sent it to me. It's a company called Quiet Culture.
Okay.
And Elizabeth sent me a link. I have not bought anything from it. I don't know that I recommend it. I just want
Now I
y'all
have to look it up.
I just want you to look at their Instagram because Elizabeth sent it to me and it has now taken over my algorithm. This woman is doing a review of that particular print of the pajamas. They're like polished cotton. And
They are.
she's like, I mean, I would definitely sleep in them, but I would also wear them. So listen, what I'm going to call these is a 24-hour set.
I mean, she's not wrong. It's super cute.
She obviously is in perimenopause.
Clearly not. It says, here's the description. This is my favorite thing. Dreamy, soft, breathable cotton, luxuriously comfortable, effortlessly stylish.
Because that's what you want in your pajamas, y'all.
Look, I'm here for it.
It just tickled me though. Mainly, I want you to go look at their Instagram and
I
find this.
can't wait.
She's a blonde woman in her, very southern bedroom with her monogrammed pillows on the bed. Giving
So
her
it's the quiet culture.
yeah, Instagram. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, the 24-hour set, which has taken over my get ready, Katie, because now all you're gonna get.
I can't wait. The quiet culture.
Yeah.
Is what their Instagram. Oh, ladies, buckle up. There are bridal parties.
Oh
There's
boy.
somebody eating a watermelon. I mean, this is amazing.
We all need a 24-hour set.
Come on.
So what's going on with you the rest of the week, Katie?
So I mean, I'm just thinking through it. Same. Reading about Jesus. You know
Okay.
what they're doing? I'm really, really excited about Thursday's chapel, even though I have confessed anybody that sits next to me in chapel gets an earful about how I can't sing, and I apologize. But Dr. Abington, who is a national treasure, he is a Black theologian, but he focuses around music, Black church music and worship. He is amazing. I love that man so much. He's doing a hymn sing
Oh, fun.
Thursday in chapel.
I want to
And
come.
one of my favorite other professors who loves to fish and wears fishing bow ties, Joel Lamont, spelled lemon, said Lamont. Dr. Lamont, I can't call him by the first names yet. Dr. Lamont is playing his trumpet along with it. And I could not be more excited. So if you would like on Thursday to watch the live feed through the Candler Worship Instagram and or Facebook page, you should do so. You should do so.
Sounds like a blessing.
It will be. It's so great. I love it. Dr. Abington will not only just play the hymns, but he will tell you the history of them and the authors and musicians that originally played them. And it is amazing. And so I can't wait. So that's my thing I'm looking forward to this week. Auburn is off, so I get a breather.
They are on fall break later this week.
Yes. And also I will be just checking in with Mandee, our safety patrol coordinator, because I worry about my people. So I need everyone to stay in contact with Mandee.
Just got an update. St. Johns County is under evacuation orders.
Get out. Get out.
Did you see here's the problem with Florida. Here's the problem. I mean,
there's just one.
Sorry.
Really.
How long? Y'all pull up a chair. Don't get me started. Here's the problem with a major hurricane hitting the Florida Peninsula is that it's going to stay a major hurricane all the way across the peninsula. And once again, there ain't but one way out. And it is I-75.
Yep.
And it is backed up. It was backed up yesterday. As soon as it became a Cat 5, people started hitting the road. They have, as of yet, they have not opened the southbound lanes.
I don't understand that
I don't
because
know either.
it's backed up all the way to Atlanta.
It is so bad. So that's the problem with, and then you say, they those people are heading north, all headed for I-10. That's when Casey was talking about whether to go to this tennis tournament or not. It's in Mobile, and she's like, I mean, if we go, we should go to Atlanta and then cut all
And
the
then
way back
come
down.
around.
Add 8 hours to your trip.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
even that
that's
is probably
exactly what
not
you should do.
feasible.
So anyway, I just now all these poor people in Jacksonville are also going to have to evacuate.
Mm-hmm.
They're the one way out there, which is I-10 275.
Yep.
Listen,
Oh,
if you're looking for a place to go, just go to Moultrie.
so I've also seen, because I know there are a lot of horsemen and women down in Florida. I've seen like the Perry Ag Center. There are equestrian places up and down 75 that are, bring your horses, free of charge. We'll, house them, whatever. I don't know if I doubt they're feeding them. Maybe they are. But like there are places, this is what there are places for you to go.
Here's the problem, though, Katie. There are, but is there gas?
Well,
And you're going to get stuck on 75 for God knows how long. Are you going to run out of gas?
yeah, I
And
know.
also,
Well, that's why I can't believe they haven't opened the southbound lanes. Like it's time for that.
people, a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck.
Well, and gas, if you're in a place with no power, guess what doesn't work? And some of South Georgia still has no power. So the gas pumps don't work. This is what we ran into a lot with Geico. People would call in and try to use their insurance gas service to get a little bit of gas to get them, but we can't. The
Right,
tow trucks don't have gas
right.
because their pumps aren't work. I mean, it's just a mess. So, it is a huge mess. I cannot believe that 75 southbound is not open going north. I mean, I believe it, but I don't understand why it's not because I mean, now's the time.
Yeah. I mean, the entire state,
Yeah.
the entire state
Yes.
is in the cone,
Yes.
except for us. I'm fine.
You'll be fine. Well, we
We're
hope.
not even going to get rain.
No. So that's why Mandy's our safety team coordinator. She will be in the safe spaces. I
Right.
texted my friend Sarah that lives in Amelia Island the other day and I was like, get to Macon. Go see your mama. Sorry. And she's like, not sorry. I love her mama. But
Yeah.
so she's like, no, we're gonna hunker down. I'm like, girl.
Julie has a colleague who just moved to Tampa in May. She was my mom's doctor. And I'm like, why are you moving to Tampa, Crystal? But her husband's family's there. She's like, we need to help take care of his
Yeah.
parents now. And so I texted Julie yesterday. I was like, how's Crystal feeling about Tampa right about now? She said they were not in an evacuation zone. So their plan was to hunker down. I was like, oh my God. And she was like, because if we leave right now, we're just going to get stuck on the interstate.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
Oh,
these
it's
back to
awful.
backs are just, and it's not slowing down. I mean, this is not the last one of the season. So just be safe, be careful, know that we are here. We care about you. Check in with Mandee. She's our clearinghouse. And I will wake up at 2 a.m. to go to the bathroom and check in with her. And we will worry about you together on the phone at 2 a.m.
Lord.
But, just you as a human are more important than any, not that God's little creatures aren't important, but any squirrel, any house, any car, you are more important. So we want you to be safe and careful. So we hope that you are.
Indeed.
Indeed.
All
All
right,
right, friends, we'll hunker down and we love you and we'll be thinking about you in Florida and have a great week. We'll see you next week.
bye, y'all.